What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into preview, rundown, whatever you want to call it, but we're going to talk about the American League Division Series, which will start in just about 24 hours. It has felt like, it's felt like off season's already begun for the Mariners. It's such a weird feeling. It's been probably about a week and a half since we've had meaningful Mariners baseball games. You could say that second game against Colorado was the last time we really felt like, man, we're dialed into a Mariners game. So time to pick it back up, get the energy going. The crowd getting electric, and it's time for postseason baseball. As always, before I go any further, if you all can like the video, whether you agree, disagree with what I'm going to say in the video, if you like the channel, it helps it out tremendously, gets the video out to more people. Comment your thoughts on the team, the series down below, the playoffs, whatever you want to talk about. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new or lurking. It's going to be a lot of fun here on the channel. Hopefully, we're in it for the long haul for a deep playoff run, and that's going to start tomorrow. The wild card series wrapped up. Great wild card series all around. All four were fairly entertaining. One of them was a little bit of a dud, but the other three I thought were really, really good. For the channel members, I did my picks on my members page. I went 3 for 4 wild card picks. The only series I got incorrect, I did have the Padres beating the Cubs. So let's sit back, relax, talk a little baseball here, grab some water, some Gatorade, popcorn, chips, whatever you need. I've got my water here too in case my voice starts going a little bit. This could be a lengthier video. Say that might not be, but it usually does tend to go longer because we're going to go over a lot of things in this video. So sit back, relax, listen, enjoy. And let's talk a little ball. Feels good. Like I said, it's kind of like got to turn it back on a little bit, and that's probably one challenge for the players too. That Dodgers series was pretty meaningless. And it's really been game 2 of the Rockies because you had the bye wrapped up before game 3. That was last Wednesday. So we're going on about a week and a half since Mariners had to be dialed in. So they're going to have to turn it back on. Certainly there's tons of advantages to having the bye. One of them is you advance, obviously, and you're more well-rested. But I think there is something to a team like Detroit that has been playing the last few days and kind of has the juices, the competitive juices flowing a little bit. So the Mariners are going to have to dig deep to turn that back on. I think they will, obviously. But, it is probably the biggest challenge of having a bye in any sport is, having to turn that back on pretty quickly because, like I said, it's going to be go time tomorrow here. I did talk about in the last video I had that don't underestimate Detroit, that, I think they're still a pretty good baseball team. I think overall they are a better team than Cleveland, and I don't know if they prove that in a 3-game series because anything can happen in a 3-game series, but they do go into Cleveland and defeat the Tigers. And I think I went back and forth, even talking to other people, hey, who'd you want to win when I was on other videos? Who'd you want to win that series? I think I changed my mind about 50 times. Even listening to the game, I was at work. I was listening to Tigers and Cleveland on the radio while I was at work. And even then, I didn't know who I wanted to win the game. I've been pretty steady in saying I think Detroit's a little more top-heavy than Cleveland. Cleveland maybe a little bit more balanced. I think rotation's a perfect example. Scooble's probably the best pitcher on the planet right now. You can certainly make a case for it. That gives them a big up in terms of starting pitching. But then there is a little bit of a drop-off. Not that Mize and Flaherty are bad by any means. They're certainly quality major league starters, but Cleveland may be a little more steady across the board. They don't have a Scooble, but I think all their starters are pretty solid. Cleveland's bullpen is better, but Detroit's also better offensively, much more consistent across the board offensively. Whereas Cleveland, let's be honest, outside of Jose Ramirez, that is a bad lineup. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on Cleveland. They're out here. Cleveland also doesn't strike out a ton. That can make them a very pesky team, get on base, kind of paper cut you to death a little bit. And we saw some of that, right? When we were in Cleveland for that last series in August, they did that a little bit to the Mariners, even in the game they lost. So that does make them somewhat dangerous, but it's not a good Cleveland offense. I do think in terms of, now that the series is over, it's kind of funny, I think our perception of who we want to play changes based on the results. Had Cleveland won the series, we'd be sitting here going, man, Cleveland is on fire. They haven't stopped winning. They've won like 19 out of 22 or something. They came back and won the Central. They won a playoff series. They are coming in here believing they're on fire and they're going to be ready to go. Man, it would have been nice to play Detroit because they're ice cold, right? They finished the season on a skid and they got eliminated right away. Well, obviously that narrative changes when Detroit wins the playoff series, right? Detroit is coming in here on a high. They probably feel like they won the division, truthfully. I mean, what does the central title matter to Cleveland? They didn't advance past Detroit. So in my mind, Detroit kind of won the division, truthfully, over Cleveland. So now you get Detroit, no team is going to come into the series on a down feeling or feeling, like they can't win, essentially, is I guess what I'm saying, right? Like Detroit, and even, listening to the radio broadcast, some things they were saying, they kind of felt like they got second life getting into the playoffs a little bit. They were pressing in those final few weeks. I talked about it a lot with the Mariners, right? When they were struggling on the road there and it looked like, was this team going to get in the playoffs? I was like, hey, I still want them to get in because you never know, right? It gives you that second season, that second opportunity. You win a short series on the road and then boom, you're in the DS and maybe you keep going. So Tigers are a good example why you don't just give up on a season here just because you're struggling down the stretch. You keep going and keep trying to fight and keep going into the dance. And Detroit has done that. And they've got to feel good. They've got the best pitcher, certainly in the American League, in my opinion, probably the best pitcher in baseball. They've got an offense that, we'll go over some of the numbers, but is certainly capable, and some dudes at the back end of the bullpen that can get it done, as well. So, no matter who we played, they were going to come in here with confidence, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So there was no real like, oh, Detroit would have been ice cold. They wouldn't have been because they won the series. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll dive into it. The Mariners were 4-2 against the Tigers this season, so we'll dive into all that. First, let's go over a couple pieces of news for the Mariners. Still not sure if we're going to see Bryan Woo in the ALDS. He talked yesterday to the media after kind of a simulated game, I guess, for lack of a better term, you would call it that. It's tough right now because unfortunately you can't make any minor league rehab starts, which makes it definitely difficult for Woo. He said, I'll see how he feels next week. That line, I think, got people kind of concerned. What does that mean? Does that mean like next Friday and the series is already potentially over and he's not pitching in the ALDS? Did he mean just like on Monday? What did he mean by that? Where are they at with that? So proof will be in the pudding. We'll find out tomorrow, Saturday morning, when the roster is released for the ALDS, if Woo's on it. I will say if he's on the roster, I don't think that means it's a guarantee he's going to pitch. It just means that they're confident enough that they feel there's a good opportunity for it and he'll be on the roster, essentially. If he's not on the roster, then we know, right, that he's not going to be pitching in the DS at all. So that'll be a huge, that will tell us a lot, right? Like I said, if he's on the roster, I don't think it's a guarantee. It just means that they're not 100% confident he won't go in the series. Obviously, would love to have Bryan Woo. I think if everything worked out and he was healthy, he would be getting the ball game one. The Mariners do have outstanding pitching depth. They're certainly, the Mariners don't have a Tarek Skubal type, but they are pretty solid across the board, right? I don't know if there's major differences between the other stars. There's certainly, my point is I'm not opening this up. If you guys want to debate in the comments, fine. But, Castillo, Gilbert, Kirby, like you're solid with any one of those three. You feel pretty good going there. Obviously, I think, stuff-wise, Gilbert might be the best. But, anyways, you know what I'm getting at there. Like, you feel good with the Mariners starting staff. So that's a little bit disappointing. Hopefully he's good to go. Maybe game 4. Potentially it seems like that would be the earliest slot for him to pitch in. That would be great. It'd be great if the Mariners are going for a series win or facing elimination, whichever one it could be. With Bryan Woo on the bump, you'd feel pretty confident in that. And he's been one of their better pitchers on the road this year as well. So hopefully he's back. We'll certainly know more about that tomorrow. Game 1 and game 2 starters have been announced. It's going to be George Kirby on the bump tomorrow, game 1, and then Luis Castillo will get the ball game 2. A little surprised, thought Logan would get the ball game 1. I'm not going to lie. But I can certainly see where they're going with it. I think Gilbert's your best bet to succeed on the road. I think his stuff, his high K rate, his low walk rate lends himself better to pitching in a tough road series. Kirby, I know, has struggled at Comerica Park. Small sample. A lot of stuff's going to be small sample, right? We're going to go over the matchups with these two teams this year. That's a small sample. Castillo's matched up with Skubal twice this year, won both games, or at least the team has won both games. That doesn't mean that Castillo's going to outpitch Skubal. But I think, good veteran presence there, not going to be afraid of Skubal on the other side. So I think, you have faith there that Castillo can give you 5-6 solid innings, going to keep you in the game, give that offense a chance to win it as well. And then you feel like, okay, go on the road and you turn the ball over to hopefully what you think maybe stuff-wise are your best two pitchers in Logan Gilbert and hopefully Bryan Woo. But again, very interesting. I don't think it's I think it's debatable going with Kirby game one. I think that's fair. If people disagree with it, I think I would have gone with Logan Gilbert. But Kirby's been a little bit better at giving them innings. Logan, we know, has kind of struggled there. I don't think it's a stuff issue. I don't know. It's just been a lot of foul balls, a lot of long at bats. Not sure it is. Not that I don't trust Logan. I absolutely do. But Kirby's been pretty dialed in his last few starts this season as well. So, Kirby will get the ball game one there. And I was going to say something else, and I forgot my train of thought there. But again, it goes back to I think, again, assuming Woo's probably not available to pitch that. Obviously, you're not going with Bryce Miller, Castillo, Gilbert, or Kirby. I think all three are good options there to go with. So I don't think you can really make a wrong decision necessarily. And I don't mind Gilbert getting that road start. I'm assuming he's going to get start game 3. Oh, I was going to say I'm a little surprised, though, because the game 1 starter is most likely to be able to go game 5. You're most likely bet to pitch, 2 games in the series. So I'm a little surprised that they're kind of trusting George Kirby to be that guy. It could be Castillo as well, but that's why I'm also surprised Logan's not pitching at home, because you kind of think Logan might be that guy. But, if Logan's going game 3, which I'm assuming, there's no chance he's pitching game 5. Maybe out of the bullpen, maybe Kirby or Castillo starts and Gilbert can come out of the pen. We're getting way ahead of ourselves, so we'll talk about that, when those games, if those games even happen, right? Like the series could be over in 3. Who knows? So, but George Kirby will be on the bump for game 1. He'll be opposed by Troy Melton from the Detroit Tigers. Be a bit of a bullpen day, but we'll get into that in a second. Let's look at some numbers here comparing the Tigers and the Mariners. Let's look at the offenses first. I'm going to give you the Tigers numbers and the Mariners numbers. Now, as always, offenses don't play each other, but I'm just trying to give you a basis of where Detroit's at and where the Mariners are at offensively. So it helps give an idea of, okay, you can kind of see the Tigers offense in your head and what they do essentially. So offensively this season, again, I'm not going to be looking at any playoff numbers. That's 3 games. I'm not saying that Detroit didn't turn it on in the playoffs and teams can't do that. It certainly matters, but it's a 3-game sample. We're going to look at the 162 because that's more likely what you'll see over the course of games. All playoffs are small sample. Anything can happen in these games, right? You could throw the Colorado Rockies in the playoffs and they could beat the Yankees 3 out of 5. Baseball's weird. Everything's a small sample, but let's get into some of the regular season data. Detroit finished the year 12th in WRC plus with a 103. WRC plus. See, I'm even out of practice here. So slightly above average overall. That was 12th in baseball. The Mariners were 3rd WRC plus with a 112. So they were well above average offensively on the season. One interesting thing here about the Tigers, last in baseball in stolen bases was 61. Just put into context, Mariners were 3rd in baseball with 161 stolen bases. Take a sip of water here, as already the voice is starting to go, but I got to save it for screaming tomorrow. That's interesting because the Mariners starters and relievers struggle at holding the run game. Cal's fantastic, but the pitchers are not great at holding runners. So that could be a factor, right? A couple bloops fall in. You don't feel like you automatically got that runner on second base. So that could be a small little X factor in this series to keep an eye on. Again, small sample. Maybe Detroit runs wild in the series. I don't know. Maybe they take advantage of a Mariners pitching staff that doesn't hold runners on very well. Who knows? But over the course of 162, they hardly stole bases at all. The team that was above them had 7 more stolen bases than they did. And like I said, the Mariners were 3rd in baseball at 161. There were times I thought the Mariners maybe ran a little too much sometimes. Detroit was 14th in baseball in walk rate, 8.4% walk rate for the Tigers. Mariners were 10th at 8.8. Kind of actually, as we go through these numbers, very similar offensively, but the Mariners kind of did everything a little bit better. Again, offenses don't play each other, so that doesn't necessarily matter. It's going to be up to the pitchers to control this. But just in terms of comparing the offenses, to me, feels like kind of similar teams, but the Mariners just a little bit better kind of in every category. Tigers were 10th in home runs in baseball. That's impressive. They play in a park that's a pretty big pitcher's park in Comerica. Now, I don't know what it does for home run rates. I don't have that number. Like the Mariners were 3rd in baseball in home runs. T-Mobile is actually not the worst home run park. It actually suppresses doubles more than it does home runs. So I don't know about Comerica. I would assume it's actually Comerica does suppress home runs. It's got that huge center field. I'm assuming you'd see a lot of doubles and triples there with those big alleys there. I know right field, I think, is a little bit more of a hitter's porch there, but left and center are fairly deep alleys there. So I would assume that it does suppress home runs. So impressive that the Tigers are 10th. They can hit the ball out of the ballpark. Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Javi Baez has good power. Tigers could be getting Colt Keith back in this series, so that'll give them a little boost. I think Baez was playing second for them. I could be wrong on that against Cleveland, but that'll be a nice boost for the Tigers offense. Wenzel Perez is a decent hitter. Dingler can hit the ball out of the park. He did in game 3. Kerry Carpenter is dangerous. So it's a solid lineup that the Tigers have. They're 16th in batting average at 247. The Mariners were 20th at 244. Tigers were 9th in BABIP offensively. The Mariners were 20th on batting average on balls in play. Obviously with not a lot of stolen bases, you don't think of the Tigers as having speed. That could also just be coaches' decisions of not stealing. I bring that up because their BABIP is fairly high. That can be just some luck with bloops falling in. It could also just be speed, right? Guys with faster hitters are going to beat out more grounders and stuff like that. We've talked about the Mariners, obviously Julio, pretty good speed, but the rest of the guys not shot. Like Geno Suarez ain't going to beat out a lot of infield hits, guys like that. Cal. So not shocked the Mariners are 20th necessarily, but, interesting to look at there. So yeah, I mean, like I said, 12th in WRC plus versus third, 14th in walk rate versus 10th. Strikeout rate I had there as well. The Tigers had the 4th highest strikeout rate in baseball at 23.9. Just to give you kind of an idea with that, the Mariners last year that we ripped for strikeouts were 26%. Just to put that in a little context for you. The Mariners were, do I have it? I don't have where they are, but they were 23.3% strikeout rate. So the Mariners actually struck out less than the Tigers did this season. So like I said, kind of similar across the board, right? For these teams, but there's just a little bit better in every category there. So, we'll see how that plays out. Certainly a very capable Tigers offense, but also, a lineup that I think if the Mariners pitchers are on this game, that they can hold in check. Let's look at the matchups. Mariners went 4-2 against the Detroit Tigers this year. Tigers took the first 2. Mariners actually won the last 4. Detroit winning 2 out of 3 in T-Mobile. They've actually had a lot of success in T-Mobile, dating back to a while now. Last year, they won 2 out of 3. Remember, that was the Mitch Haniger walk-off game. The year before, they won 2 out of 3. In 22, when the Mariners went to the playoffs, I think the Mariners won 3 out of 4. They played at the end of the year. Remember, they're supposed to open the season, but there was the strike or the lockout. I don't know which one it was, but they didn't play till the end of the year. And I think in 21, the Tigers swept the Mariners. In fact, that might have been the Turnbull no-hitter, right? Spencer Turnbull had a no-hitter there. So the Tigers have had some success in T-Mobile. Again, even if we're going to go back to 21, completely different teams, and it's still a small sample size. I don't put a ton of stock into, this team plays well in the ballpark. I put stock into like the team beat the team, you know what I mean? And how they matched up in those games. But I don't think there's anything where like, the Tigers have our number in T-Mobile necessarily. I mean, we'll find out, right? If they come and win the first 2, maybe they do. But that's not something I would sweat about for this series. So let's look at the games. First game was Job for the Tigers, who's out for, this was game 1 in T-Mobile. The Tigers won. Job versus Emerson Hancock. Job's on the IL, Tommy John, so he's not going to impact the series. Emerson Hancock might out of the bullpen, but I'm going to kind of throw that game away a little bit. I'm going to look mostly at the pitching matchups here and how the pitchers fared against the team when we go through those series. So kind of an inconsequential game. Obviously, a lot of the same offensive guys are there, but I'm not going to go through the box score of every game. Like, we know who the Tigers have that can hit. We know who the Mariners have that can hit. I'm really just going to look at the starting pitchers and how they fared. Game 2 had Casey Mize going for the Tigers. The Tigers won this one, I believe, 4-1. Mize went 5 2/3, only 1 hit. I think that was a post-game recap where he busted out the Bob Uecker. 1 hit, 1 damn hit is all we got. Sorry for anybody just listening. Taking a sip of water. He had 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, did not give up a run. Logan Gilbert opposed him. 5 innings, did give up 3 runs, but only 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. Kind of a classic 2025 Logan game where ton of strikeouts, just couldn't get very deep into the game, but both starting pitchers were solid in that matchup. Game 3, the Mariners won 3-2. Afternoon game, it was Skubal versus Castillo. Skubal 5 2/3, 6 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. Castillo 7 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 5 Ks. That's a big, potential X factor here. I heard going into the Detroit-Cleveland series, listening on the radio that, Cleveland beat Skubal's last 2 starts, which was true. But they didn't beat Skubal. They won the game. The Mariners legitimately did beat Tarek Skubal twice this year. If that's what he throws on Sunday, and I don't know, he could go 8 shutout innings. I don't know. But if he goes 5 2/3 with 3 earned runs, you sign up for that all day. I would take that right now. And then we'll get into his start in Detroit, which was even better success for the Mariners. So the Mariners can legitimately claim, you never claim you have someone's number, right? I mean, we would need a lot more data for that, but the Mariners did hit him this season. So it's not crazy that the Mariners could do it again, right? It's not just a matter of, oh, they won the 2 games, but Skubal threw 8 shutout innings and you won 1-0. It would be great. We take the wins, but the Mariners did legitimately have offensive success against Tarik Skubal. Random sample. Do they know something? Do they pick up the ball better against them? Don't know, right? But there is at least confidence going in there that they can hopefully beat Skubal. Game 4 was in Detroit. This was the big series right after the All-Star break. This was a huge gut check series win for the Mariners when they swept the Tigers. They lost that brutal game in Yankee Stadium where Brian Wu had the no-hitter going. And I remember doing the video saying, great, now we got to face Skubal tomorrow. Well, the Mariners handled them in Detroit. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Julio got him for a big home run. He was opposed by Castillo, who went 5 innings, 3 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. So Luis Castillo does out-duel Tarik Skubal twice this year, and we're likely to see that for a 3rd time. Detroit's probably sitting there going 3rd time the charm. For the Mariners, it does at least give you some confidence that you can win that matchup. It's not like some complete mismatch or anything like that. So I think Castillo's a good guy to go against Skubal, having that veteran presence on the mound. All the Mariner stars are kind of veterans at this point, to be honest. Gilbert, Kirby have been around since 21 and 22. Wu's been around since 23. So is Bryce Miller. So there's no real rookie on the Mariner staff, but Castillo's not going to get too wrapped up in the moment. He's going to go out there and pitch his game. So that was game 1 of that series. Mariners pounded Casey Mize in game 2. He went 3 innings, 6 runs, 1 walk, 4 Ks. You remember Luke Raley got him for a big home run in that series. Kirby was opposed to him. We'll see Kirby tomorrow. Kirby went 5 innings, 4 runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. Kirby was locked in pretty well in that game. Then Riley Green got him for a 3-run home run, I think, in that 5th inning. Never dismiss it because every pitcher can go through and go, well, going to give Kirby the leeway there, then give it to Skubal. Gave up the home run to Julio at the end of his outing. But Kirby was pitching pretty well. He had a long 1st inning, 30-something pitches. That hurt him in that outing. After that, he really settled in. Unfortunately, just couldn't get through it with Riley Green. Kind of a struggle for the Mariners pitchers throughout the summer a little bit, where they kind of struggled to finish outings. We talked about that. They were much better at that in September. That start by Kirby, kind of a perfect microcosm of that. But I don't think he pitched poorly in that game necessarily. Then the final game of that series, an 8-4 Mariners win. The closest game of that series, Jack Flaherty, who I'm assuming we're going to see in game 3, probably matched up with who he's going to match up against, or who he matched up against in this game, Logan Gilbert. Flaherty was pretty solid. 5 innings, 2 runs, 2 walks, 7 Ks. Did wiggle out of some jams. Mariners had bases loaded, nobody out in that 1st inning, couldn't score. But they did find a way. I think Randy had a home run against Flaherty, and then the Mariners came back late in that game and then really blasted off on Tommy Canley out of the bullpen. Polanco and Cole Young had home runs against him. Logan was really solid in that game, 5 1/3, 2 runs, but they weren't earned. 2 walks and 9 strikeouts. So Logan threw the ball really well against Detroit this year, 10 1/3, 3 earned runs, 19 strikeouts, 3 walks in that time. Castillo was solid, 12 innings, 5 earned runs. He had 4 walks and 10 strikeouts. And Kirby just made the 1 start against him. Again, all small sample, right? You don't want to just look at 2 games and go, oh, Gilbert was easily the best. He was, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's the best option to start. Or it could mean it. Again, we're all talking about small samples here, but just want to kind of go through the games and give the overview of those as well. Did want to point out in that 2nd game, the Casey Mize one in Detroit, the Mariners won 15-7. The Mize versus Kirby game. Cater Montero pitched in that game. We could see him tomorrow. Troy Melton's going to start for Detroit, but Montero could get the bulk innings potentially. I don't know. We'll see how Hinch manages it. But Montero went 3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 2 Ks in that game. Last year against the Tigers, AJ Hinch played a lot of matchups, right? Remember that outside the Skubal game, he would start a guy, then go to, a bulk guy that was a lefty to kind of throw off the Mariners lineup a little bit. And it frustrated the Mariners, or at least it looked like it watching the games. Maybe it didn't. They just didn't win baseball games, but it looked like something that frustrated them. I think you're going to see a little bit of that in game 1 tomorrow. Melton's going to start. We'll look at his numbers in a little bit. Not a lot of innings this year, but I imagine he goes 1 or 2, and then a lefty to face that kind of pocket of lefties there. Tigers have a couple of them out of the bullpen. and then probably Montero after that. So it's going to be, crucial. I think game one's going to be very crucial for the Mariners, with Skubal likely going game two. You don't want to fall down in this series 1-0 and then face Tarek Skubal. So it's going to be on the Mariners to make sure that bullpen game, is won by the Mariners. And listen, if you can win it, that can be huge. I mean, of course it is. It's a 5-game series. Any win's huge, but obviously not just from the standpoint of winning it, but then the Tigers might blow through a lot of their bullpen in game one. And if you can get to Skubal, who'll be on 4 days rest in game two, they may not have some of the bullpen arms behind them. So if you can really pound that bullpen tomorrow, which the Mariners offense is more than capable of, you do put Detroit in a tight spot. But Detroit's going to look at it as, hey, we'll blow through the bullpen game one and trust Skubal to go 7 in game two. So Mariners have to do what they did against Skubal this season, work the walks, get that pitch count up, and hopefully drive them out after 5 1/3. And that's hopefully after getting to Detroit bullpen game one. Then you set yourself up very, very well to win this series. So let's go ahead and look at some of the pitching. We'll pull up some of the savant pages for these guys as well here in just a minute. Pitching wise, Mariners going to face Casey Mize. I don't have Troy Melton's. I'm going to go through the ERA, expected ERA, and FIP here. I don't have Melton's up. I just saw a few minutes ago he was actually getting the ball. But we know Casey Mize is going to go game two. We're going to assume Jack Flaherty goes game three, and we know Skubal's going to go game two. Mize had a solid season, 3.87 ERA, 3.70 expected ERA, 3.95 FIP. Let's pull up his savant page here if I can get it. Let's see. You guys are going to stick with me here as I pull it up, and we'll look at Casey Mize. Let's share the old screen here, and we'll look at Mize. So like I said, we'll look at my eyes. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. Obviously, expected ERA. Again, for everybody that's not familiar with Baseball Savant pages, blue is generally below average. Red is very good. It's their percentile rank for these stats in baseball compared to other pitchers. So expected batting average, slightly above average for Mize, 51st percentile, 247 expected batting average against. His fastball velo, 54 percentile, 4% above average, 94.6. Average exit velo against him, he's below average, so giving up some hard contact. Chase, so getting guys to chase off the plate, he's essentially league average. Whiff, so swing and miss, he's below league average. Strikeout percentage, he's about, again, league average. So kind of the strikeout stuff is right there in the middle. Not a huge strikeout guy, but capable. Does not walk guys, 87th percentile for walk rate there. So does not give up free passes. Again, this is Casey Mize, who we'll see probably game three. Barrel rates, barrel percentage, he gives up below average. Same with hard hit. Not a ground ball guy either, so you're going to get some fly balls. Should be a guy the Mariners can hit. They hit him very well in Detroit. No shocking, not shocked looking at this that they did. This is the kind of pitcher that the Mariners do tend to have success against. An extension, just so anybody knows, that's I'm trying to think of it, like Logan Gilbert. Think of his pitching style, how close he looks to the plate when he finishes, when he throws. That's extension. And it's important because it can make a fastball look a lot faster when the arm angle, is coming at you, almost looks like he's at the plate. For example, Luis Castillo, we're not going to go through all the Mariners pitchers because we kind of know them. Luis Castillo has very poor extension because he throws it very close when he comes in there. So Mize has good extension, probably makes that fastball look a little bit faster for him. We're going to now look at Jack Flaherty here. Did it change over for me on there? It did. Oh, probably because I still have it on Casey Mize. So let's do this. Oh, got rid of my face there. Not what I wanted. Hold on. Let's see. There we go. And now let's pull up another one here. Okay. Can I do this? Okay, come on. I'm having all sorts of trouble. Why can't, there we go. Share screen. I'm sorry about that, guys. You can see my technical prowess is not great. This is Jack Flaherty, who I'm assuming the Mariners will face in game 3 of this series. Again, we'll look at Melton. We'll look at Skubal as well. Skubal's is going to be very red. I will let you know about that. So expected ERA, about average for Jack Flaherty. Expected batting average, again, slightly above average. His velo is low. Fastball velo, doesn't throw the ball very hard. Average exit velo against is low. Does get some chase and whiff above average there, getting guys chased out of zone and swing and miss. good strikeout rate, 82nd percentile. He's solid at both, getting guys to swing and miss and getting guys to chase out of the zone. So not completely shocked that the strikeout rate is fairly good. Does have some problems with walk, below average walk rate. Gives up some barrels and hard hits, not a lot of ground balls, and decent extension. Again, you look at this, and this would be another guy you think the Mariners offense could have some success against, barreling balls up, hard hits, good exit velo, not a ton of ground balls. Feels like the guys the Mariners struggle against a lot, are the guys that really keep the ball on the ground. Mariners hit a lot of home runs, so it makes sense. They can't elevate the ball as much. They don't have a lot of speedsters outside of the Julios and stuff. So I think this is actually pretty good matchups for the Mariners. Not that these guys aren't good. So you're a Tigers fan, watch this. None of this is to say Jack Flaherty's got playoff experience. Casey Mize shut down the Mariners earlier this year. So these are good pitchers for sure. And as always, when we bring up this data, and I'll go here, Flaherty 4.64 ERA in the year, 4.03 expected ERA, 3.85 FIP. This is all, take everything with a grain of salt, right? This doesn't take into account, that bulldog inside some of these guys, the heart, some of these guys have as well. Great data, but it doesn't tell you everything, especially in the postseason, right? We can pull up Luis Castillo's page. It's actually a lot of blue. He hasn't been great. Doesn't mean you don't trust a veteran like that in the playoffs. So none of this is to say that these guys are guaranteed to get shelled by the Mariners pitching, but I think pretty good matchups for the Mariners. So let's keep it here instead of, exiting the page. Let's pull up Tarik Skubal. Yeah, Tarik Skubal's really bleeping good. I mean, he's probably the best pitcher in baseball. Nothing to say here. The only hey is the Mariners did beat him twice. And to be the best, you got to beat the best, in the postseason. And this is the best. I guess his barrel rate is slightly above average. And he doesn't get a ton of ground balls. Could make sense why the Mariners, Julio hit a home run against him. I mean, everything else is just top of the line. This is one of the best pitchers in baseball. Mariners offense is going to have to find a way to grind out at bats. So I think game one is so important. You put a little pressure on Skubal. He'll be on 4 days rest, not 5. So hopefully you can find a way game 2. And you don't need to pound Skubal, right? Find a way to get 1 or 2 off of him for 5 or 6 innings. And hopefully Castillo's on his game. And then you turn over the bullpens. And maybe a Tigers bullpen that's pretty tired, having played all 3 in Cleveland, which I think is nice. That series went 3 games. And then facing, maybe a more rested Mariners bullpen. You have an advantage there. And the Tigers possibly having to use their bullpen a lot in game 1. But yeah, Tarik Skubal's really good. That's just no doubt about that. Let's go over Skubal's numbers: 2.21 ERA, 2.74 expected ERA, and a 2.45 FIP. Troy Melton is going to be probably more of an opener tomorrow. On the season, Melton appeared in 16 games, made 4 starts, kind of pitched multiple innings, kind of a, what would you call that? Kind of a swing guy a little bit, I guess. 45 and 2/3 innings, 36 strikeouts, 15 walks, and an ERA of 2.76. So solid. Very odd savant page here. Throws the ball well, good extension. And again, the reason that you don't have the percentiles here for these Blues is he hasn't pitched enough innings to qualify. This is a very small sample with 45 innings. But according to this, what he does well is he doesn't give up, expected batting average is low against him. He's got good fastball velo, good extension. That extension probably makes that fastball look even better, even thrown even harder. But everything else hasn't done a very good job at yet. Hasn't gotten a lot of chase. Guys swing out of the zone or a lot of swing and miss. Strikeouts aren't very good. Walks is about average. Ground balls about average. Barrel rate about average. So I don't think we're going to see him for very long. Probably be better to look at Taylor Montero here for Detroit. Let's pull him up and see how he's looked. Very odd savant page, but I think, again, it's just a small sample. Montero, kind of another kind of swing guy. Nothing too awful. Obviously doesn't get a ton of strikeouts and a ton of swing and miss here. Doesn't get guys to chase on an average rate. Kind of just average across the board. Someone the Mariners hopefully can get to, if they face them. But none of these Tigers pitchers, I will say this, they don't do anything awful, right? There's nothing that you saw in this where you go, man, they're really bad at this. They're just kind of steady across the board a little bit. So certainly guys the Mariners I think can get to, but nobody that's also outside of Skubal, that you go in going, man, the Mariners have, absolutely no shot in this series. So let's go ahead and there we go. I almost thought I ended the video there. I'm like, that would have been a disaster. The split screen. So that's the starters that the Detroit Tigers will throw out there. So that's about all I've got. Listen, the Mariners are favored to win this series. I do believe the Seattle Mariners are the better baseball team here. I would have thought that versus Cleveland or Detroit. I should have said that at the beginning of the video. I think the Mariners are going to win the series. I think they're going to beat Detroit. I think they would have beaten Cleveland, and I think they're going to make it to the LCS. Do I think it's going to be easy? No. There's no easy team in the playoffs. It just doesn't exist. So don't panic during these games if some things don't go their way. It's a good baseball team they're playing. Just one inning at a time, one pitch at a time, keep it dialed in and keep it going. I think the Mariners starters, keep the ball in the park match up pretty well to Detroit stars. Oh, let's look at some of the pitching numbers real quick here. Tigers are 14th in baseball in home run rate. As a pitching staff as a whole, 1.17 home runs per nine. Mariners are 15th with 1.18. So again, very similar here. Tigers are 10th best walk rate in baseball. This is overall whole pitching staff. Mariners are third best walk rate in baseball. Obviously, I think the game plan against Cleveland would have been much simpler. Don't let Jose Ramirez beat you. You're going to have to survive that Cleveland bullpen. A little bit opposite here. I don't think the Tigers bullpen is that great. Doesn't mean they don't have some dudes. Will Vest is throwing the ball very well this year at the back end of that bullpen. So there are some dudes there. None of these teams making the playoffs, are terrible at any one thing necessarily. Like I said, offense is very similar. Keep the ball in the yard if you're the Mariners pitchers. I think will be the key here. It's been kind of a bugaboo for the Mariners, although they've certainly been better at it in August, September. And I think that'll go a long way. I think that's going to kind of be both pitching staffs. The message to both teams is going to be very similar. Keep that team in the yard. The Tigers don't steal any bases. So, that should be nice. If they do get a couple BABIP hits or some weird bloops that always drive us nuts, they're probably not going to second base in these games. I think game one is pivotal because you're getting a Tigers bullpen that's probably a little tired after playing 3 against Cleveland. Obviously it's a cliche, got to win game one, but I do think it's very important for the Mariners. You don't want to get down 1-0 facing Tarek Skubal. Does it mean the series is over if they lose game one? Not at all. Not at all. They can bounce back and beat Skubal for all we know. But I do think you want to lock in game one here. And then it puts the pressure back on the Tigers. It puts it back on Tarek Skubal to have a huge game in game two, probably feeling like their season is on the line a little bit there. And sometimes that pressure, maybe you can get to him a little bit and get a few runs off him and have Castillo dialed in. Then you feel like you can go back to Detroit 2-0 and you're in pretty good shape with Logan Gilbert going against Flaherty there. So I do think game one is very important. George Kirby's got to be solid. I mean, it goes without saying, but he gets the ball game one, obviously, and Kirby's got to be dialed in. He's been much better in September. So need George Kirby to have, the game he did in Houston, right? That kind of bulldog start where, Kirby pitches with a little bit of attitude. We saw in 2022 in the playoff series against the Astros how well he pitched the 7 shutout innings. Need that George Kirby. The crowd is going to be electric in T-Mobile Park this weekend. That's going to be huge. The team needs to feed off of that, right? Keep that energy high. Keep the pressure on the Tigers. And listen, Detroit had a lot of success in Cleveland. Skubal was dominant. Flaherty was solid. I think Mize went game 2 solid. This is a much better offense than those Cleveland pitchers faced. Excuse me. This is a much better Mariners offense than Detroit faced in Cleveland. If you're panicking, oh man, Skubal's so good against Cleveland. Of course, Skubal's fantastic. I'm not saying you shouldn't be worried about facing him, but the Mariners offense is night and day difference from the Cleveland offense. So if we believe in our team, you got to beat the best, and they can go out there and do that. I do think the Mariners win the series. I predicted these two teams in my members video to face off against each other, and I took the Mariners to win it. I think the Mariners are the better team. I think they're actually very similar, like I said, but the Mariners just kind of a little bit better at everything. The one big thing for Detroit is Tarek Skubal, right? That's kind of the big X factor here. If you can go game 2 and possibly go game 5, that does make it tough. Facing him 2 times in 5 games is a difficult task. Like, hopefully doesn't get to game 5. But that's kind of not an X factor because someone as good as Skubal is not an X factor, but that's going to be kind of the big thing. And the Mariners don't have a pitcher to that caliber on their team, but everything else favors the Mariners. So if you can win game 1, find a way to get a little bit off Skubal game 2. I think you're set up very, very nicely to win this series. I'll be here tomorrow. Might go live probably Sunday. I think we'll do a live Sunday. Tomorrow will be a regular recap. And then Sunday I will be live. Channel members, I'll have a contest up. It might just be for a certain game. So get ready for a contest for game 3 of the series. And that'll be, if you want to become a channel member, we have a contest going on as well for that. So enjoy the series. If you are going to T-Mobile, be loud, be proud. I'm sorry if I've sounded kind of down this video. Long week for me at work. I had a guy out, so I was kind of subbing and doing 2 jobs. So I'm beat. So if I don't sound as like you rah, it's not because of the game. I do got to kind of get myself into it here. It's been a week and a half, so I am maybe a little bit out of practice, but be loud, enjoy it. This is what we've wanted. This is what we've wanted to be. I mean, how many years have we, gone to bed dreaming this? Oh man, I want to see Felix in a playoff game. And oh man, I want to see this and that. And here it is, and not just 2022, win a couple road playoff games, lose a couple road playoff games, and have one home game. This is a chance to set the tone at home. Have fun, be loud, enjoy it. Let's go get a W tomorrow for game 1. Remember to like, remember to comment, remember to subscribe, and most importantly, go Mariners. Peace.